Hello, and welcome to the show that contradicts the human mind through relationships, aspirations, experience, and reality. I'm your host, William, otherwise known as Pingeptic, and today I'm going solo as I share the closest things and experiences to my heart, and the relationships and aspirations of reality I found within them. So, let's get straight to it. I want to start with a very down part of my life. A very, I wouldn't say contradictory part of my life, but a part of my life that some would never dream of even touching. It's an area of my life, in a weird way, I'm proud of, because otherwise I wouldn't be where I am now. But in the same way, I wish it never happened. I think that's a good place to be. Well, not in the sense of it actually happening, but yeah, it's a tough experience, but we're past it and we're moving on. But I wanted to go over what happened to me. It's over a year ago now. This was June 2023. Now it's, I was going to say November then. It's December 2024, nearly 2025, everyone. I know it's been a very long year, but yeah, Merry Christmas. It's December 2025, and I wanted 2024, and I wanted to share the experience I had on June 2023. I was doing a form of PE, and before I knew it, I got hit over the head with a softball bat. Soon after, I caught virus. I nearly passed out, and next I knew I was in hospital. That all happened in a space of approximately 3 to 4 weeks. My first week, I got hit over the head with a softball bat. If you don't know what a softball bat is, it's almost like a larger baseball bat. I can't particularly remember what we used at the time, because we used at different times both metal and wood softball bats. Either way, it wouldn't have been good for my head, but I got hit over the head with a softball bat. And sadly, no consequences emerged for the person that created the incident. Though, I became very ill within days, and soon after I did recover. I was quite surprised how quick I did recover. Within about a week, I went back, doing what I normally do. Then I started getting really badly ill again. It's almost like an aftershock. And we believed I had some kind of virus. Who knows though? I had some kind of illness. We don't know exactly what happened there. But it is what it is. There's no way around it, and it's way in the past now, so it doesn't really bother me too much. But yeah, and everything started going better again. I started recovering. My body started repairing itself again. And I thought, oh, life's great. Kind of, other than actually having that. Life's great. Except from this one weekend, I started getting really badly ill. I kept warning to any younger viewers on what I'm about to say. I started continuously throwing up. I think it was it a Sunday? I think it was a Sunday. I just kept throwing up and throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. I could not hold myself back, not for 1 second. Anything I took came straight back out of me. Water, boiled water, food, anything of any form. Now, at the time, I became very drained, very tired, and I was on my last couple of legs. I was at my last, you could say, standing point. I was I was on the edge of that cliff, and I started to fall off. But the point was, the place I was in, I was so close to that edge. All I needed was a tiny bit of wind to push me down, and I would have fell. But gladly, the wind was going in an opposite direction. If anyone didn't notice, that was a heavy metaphor there. So, it was a very tough scenario. I remember being out in the garden. My mum was there with me. Oh, my eye. My mum was there with me, and she kept kind of. She was panicking inside. I could see it in her eyes, but she was trying to keep herself calm. For my sake, I think. It's a very sticky scenario. You don't want to see someone you love, you don't want to see someone you love dying or suffering in any kind of way. In the same way, you don't want to have to someone else see you being in that position either. I say dying because that's almost the point I was at. I was so drained I nearly passed out. I went to hospital and they told me that if I did pass out, I wouldn't be here. How nice of them. Great news, isn't it? I mean, it is great news, considering I did nearly pass out and nearly pass over to another world, if that's what you believe in. Though, I was in hospital. I remember going to A&E. I was put into a wheelchair. I could barely stand at the time. And I remember they eventually put me in a bed. The bed was too small though. And I remember for hours and hours they did all these different tests on me. Tons of different tests. They would give me water via my blood, because my body couldn't intake it naturally in its natural ways, because my stomach my whole body was so turbulent, it was rejecting anything. It was almost seeing anything as a threat. So I was glad that I could be in some kind of place like that anyway. No offense to anyone out there, but some hospitals aren't fantastic. But they do have the baseline treatments that anyone could use to a certain degree. There's one time during the first few hours that I'll never unsee. I remember they originally put me in A&E, and then they moved me. I don't know if they moved me twice or once in this time period, but I was in this small room, and they're doing loads of different tests on me. And I remember looking over to the left hand side, and there was this like windowsill. There was a windowsill bit across here, where a window was, and my parents were sitting there. I remember I didn't feel that great, but I was glad. That my parents were alright, in a way, because when you're in a position like that, you have a few choices in your head, a few positions you're in, and the main thing you always keep thinking about, the main thing you can't unsee, is the people you love around you. Because you know, when you're gone, it's almost like they've lost a part of themselves as well. And that's tough. That's really, really tough. It's unlike anything else. I remember laying there, and I felt like I've either got to step away into this other world, or somehow I've got to fix myself up quick. If I stay in this position any longer, it's not going to end well. Because inside, my parents would have been suffering so much. And they were suffering internally from the stress. I remember seeing my dad come over, he had his hat, his cap or whatever you want to call it, and his coat. Came over to my side. I remember him saying to me, "You alright?" And I just said to him, "Yeah, I'm alright." I wasn't. But I didn't want him to worry. And when it's someone you love, you'll do anything to keep them safe. In many different ways and forms. Oh, sorry. Oh. But I remember laying there, my head back, and I remember looking into his eyes, looking at his face, looking right into his eyes when he said it. And I remember just thinking, I hope I'm going to be alright. Not just for my sake, but for yours. I hope I'm going to be alright. And I was alright. I'm here now. I'm getting on with things. I'm moving on in the world in some way or form. Everyone does. But being in that position, it was almost like a wake-up call. It sort of changed me in some way. It made me recognise that if I were to keep on just sitting in the background, just taking things really slow, I wouldn't get anywhere. I wouldn't be able to make any difference or change. But if I stood up there, if I stood in front of that crowd, if I pushed forward, I knew I'd be able to do at least something small. Maybe recognise that. It's maybe recognise something really big, something really important. And a lot of teenagers out there, well, it's mainly teenagers, but loads of different people really, in general. I say teenagers specifically though because of the hormones going through their body, which affects how they react to stuff. So if there are any teenagers watching this, they might think I'm an absolute lunatic, who knows. But it's that when you're young, you tend to get influenced more by things like games and films and technology, especially nowadays. And the biggest factor used to be stuff like sport. But games have overtook sport in time. But the biggest thing with that is, sport or games is, you get so focused on it, you do so much within it. It takes so much of your time. And slowly, bit by bit, the ones you love that are around you, you barely even notice. They're almost lost in the background. And every single day, I remember when I was in the hospital, because if I didn't, things would be a lot different. I wouldn't be sitting in now. I wouldn't be on the planet in some way or form if that followed through. But if I wasn't ill at all, if I didn't get hit over the head or anything, if I was alright, I reckon I wouldn't be the same way, same form. I'd probably be triple the size and fat. I'd probably be slugging around, hardly doing anything. I mean, sometimes you have days where you can't do much, and I understand that, but in my perspective, my life is a lot brighter now because of the circumstances. There are other things I have to do to stay put, to stay moving forward. But it's way better in comparison of what I could have had. That was my time in hospital. But let's take a deeper insight, shall we? Let's take a deeper insight on what I was like to what I'm like now. And if we just take a brief overview on what I was like, what I'm like now. I've said that a couple of times now. I used to have a part of me that used to try its best and do absolutely everything I can, but I never used to care about my own goal. I never used to care about what might actually happen. I used to eat and do absolutely anything, really. I used to do whatever. Though, in scenarios of exploring outside of what I did every single day, I was afraid, I was worried about what might happen if I did do something outside of that routine or position. Whereas, if we look at it on the opposite side of the scale, on the scale that I'm on now, the side of the scale I'm on now, I've ever since I've just kept on trying to see things as a fresh start, a new start. The idea that anything's possible, and whatever happens, I've got some kind of reason to be given such a chance and another chance. So bit by bit, I've tried taking a step back from things, looking at things and thinking about the things that I eat, how I react to things, what I'm doing, and all the other details that are in everyone's lives. I've just sat there, took a step back, and thought, what am I doing? What can I do differently? What did I do? What have I done? Simply. And the thing was, before, I always used to care more about the people around me. I didn't care about myself. Whereas through time, I've learned to want the best for other people and myself. And also sometimes having to have a bit of a selfish attitude. But it's all because of one simple thing. If you can't help yourself, how can you help anyone else? How can you? Because if you're in a desperate situation, and you and someone you love, you help the person you love, but you know, if you helped yourself, there might be that slight chance you could have still helped them. Would you rather the person you loved get away from whatever danger you're in, or both of you? The chance that both of you can get away, I see that being much greater. Besides, I'm going to say it again. If you can't help yourself, how can you help anyone else? How can you? It's just something else. Now, I want to look at something slightly different. Something more, I won't say educational, something more work based. And area based, if that makes any sense. Now, this is looking at more of aspirations and futures before and after my hospital incident or accident or whatever you want to call it. Now, before, I always had a thing for jobs like being a pilot or a police officer, maybe in the army, being an actor, fireman, or whatever else. And that's a big mixture. There's a lot of random things. Once upon a time, I probably even want to be a salesman or something. Would surprise me. But that contradicts what I want to be more now. I want to look at things more like politics. I want to look more into things more like directing and film. Or something like a teacher. And you might think, why would I want to do that? But it's just because of the simple things of helping people. And teaching people. Helping and teaching people. Now, I've always had an interest in film anyway. So something like a film director. You're teaching people the ways of acting. In the same way, you get to have a look at the scenarios of film and theatre and whatever else. So it's almost like a 2-in-1. Going to politics, I wouldn't say Prime Minister, but the highest you could probably get is Prime Minister in this country. So, if you become something anywhere near Prime Minister, you have a lot of weight on your hands on what happens to the country and its people. So in a way, you're teaching the people of the country. But you're also helping them. What you do decides the fate of your people. And that's a big responsibility. But not just that. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Now being a teacher, that's quite low standard wise, in a sense compared to the other two. I apologise if there are any teachers watching. For a teacher though, you get to help your students in many different ways. You might be a mentor, whatever else. So you're not just helping with educational senses, you're helping them in day-to-day life senses, in a way, in a sense. That's a lot of senses there. So it's the idea of being able to teach stuff to a student, but also to help them with not just their studies, but their outer life. Anyway, let's move away from the job aspect for now. Let's move on to something slightly different. And this is to do with everyone's day-to-day life. Now, before, I wanted to achieve the best, as I've already said, though I had little hope, or as most people would say, is motivation. I never truly cared on the circumstances, never had the energy for it either. Whereas now, I tend to have much more confidence, and I have an absolute ton of motivation compared to before. Absolute ton. Now I'm talking like a litre compared to 1,000 litres or something. If you're going to sell a product, you want to have more to be able to sell, because then you can make more of a profit. And in the same way, I used to have hardly any motivation, and now I have an absolute ton. Now you could say that's just because of the circumstances or whatever happened. And I think honestly you could be right. It could be just that. But it's also because of the mindset. And that doesn't have to happen because you nearly died. A mindset doesn't change because you just die or nearly die or you get into an accident or something. It's all to do with how you perceive things and look at things. So every time you look at something, always keep in your mind, that could be different. Is there anything I can change about this? Just keep that in mind. Now, going back to not quite the job area, but education. Now, I didn't think I'd be able to reach stuff like college or university, or in a sense even think about even getting a job or moving on in life. Though now I'm not as bothered about things like university. Don't take this the wrong way, but sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a waste. Loads of people go there. They spend tons and tons of money, some which is not their own because they get loans from banks and the government and whatever else, just to come back out that university knowing you have the exact same as they went in there with. Or if it's anything else, no offence, but half the time it's useless. So what's the point in paying an arm and a leg to get an education that does not educate? That's my opinion. That's what I believe. So that's what I'm going for. Though now I recognise that I can achieve something. I can achieve something big. If I put my mind to something, I know at some point I'll get there. If I keep following and pushing forward for something, I'll get there. Maybe not now, maybe not next week or next month. But in so many years, I could, yeah. And if I can, why can't you? Okay. Now to add to that, I was always stuck in my own kind of universe. And I'd like to say the past. Because I was always acting like a kid. But not a good kind of kid. I was always acting ludicrous. Like a bit of a lunatic. Now, I'm not stuck in the past as so. But I do reminisce on the past. I look on the past. Not just to see what I can change and improve on. But just look back on some memories and think, oh, I did great there. Or I wish I didn't do that, which can be funny, depending on what it was. But then again, I tend to look more towards my future now. Because if you stay in the past, you'll never ever see your future. You never get there. Because the world you create is something that will never exist. Let's move on to another point of mine. And the next thing I would like to talk about is relationships. Okay, bear with me. Relationships. Now, before I start, relationships does not need to be a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a wife, a husband. That does not need to be a relationship. That is a form of relationship, but that does not have to be the context of a relationship. A relationship could be a friend, could be a family member, someone else close to you, or anything else. Now, I'm not saying they are not relationships. I'm saying that everything should be counted. Friends, loved ones, partners. When I say partners, I mean girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives, family members, etc. Now, before, I never truly bothered with relationships in love. I mean, I had some relationships, quite small ones, though they never really bothered me. Never truly bothered me in the way where it made an impact on me. Just so anything that happened, it would affect me for less than a day, and then time would just go by. Days, weeks, and something else would happen. I kept strong connections with friends though, which is sort of the opposing argument. Back then, I didn't have true relationships with a partner or a possible partner. No, I did try to keep strong connections with friends. And some friends are there for life. They are. And some people will say, no, they're not. But it's just because you haven't found that friend yet. and I have one dear close friend that I know, some way or form, I'm going to know him for life. It might be a thing we might not talk for quite a while. But when we see each other again, we're going to catch up in seconds. It's not going to be very hard. Time's going to build back up, and we're going to just get on with stuff. We're just going to do what we need to do. Now, the biggest thing I want to mention is, I wouldn't say it exactly links relationships, though it can have an impact on them. And that was before I was more worried about the way people thought of me. I don't know, maybe it was something like, this is an extreme aspect, but it can happen. Maybe it's how much money I have, what I'm wearing, or how I'm doing educationally, or something. I used to constantly think, oh, I need to do that, I need to do that, I need to do that, because otherwise no one will like me, or no one will think of me in any kind of way. But that's not how it should be. For some reason, that's how I thought. Though now, ever since I come out of hospital and recovered, I've always been a sort of, I wouldn't say the mood, but I've always been the sort of, I've been in my own sort of way. I've wanted to find someone I can have a great relationship with, to have great fun with friends, to keep a very good relationship like I do have. When I say relationship, I mean friendship. Though it doesn't need to be my key focus. The key focus should always be yourself. As I said before, if you cannot help yourself, how can you help anyone else? If you can't care for others or friends, although you care for others and friends, you need to care for yourself. You need to care about yourself. Remember that. Sometimes you might just want a good ego, or to have a good image in some way or form. Though you don't necessarily need it. And I'll be honest, if you do focus on yourself, your ego will heighten itself. Your image will seem brighter. Because the work you do on yourself improves your lifestyle, which improves the way people look at you in some way or form. When I say improves, it could mean some people hate you more or love you more, but it doesn't have to be either of them. Because you're getting that attention, which heightens your ego anyway. I'm not saying that's a good thing still, but I am saying that you should focus on yourself. Because it's beneficial for your body, beneficial for your future, and beneficial for anything else coming your way. Yeah. Now, I care about others, but never truly worry about the way people think about me. Going back to the point I said earlier, that I was more worried about the way people looked at me or thought about me, different experiences and circumstances. So I'll say again, I care about others, but never truly worry about the way people think about me. Because in the end, I might be nervous in certain scenarios, but either way, you just have to get on with things. You have to move forward. You have to get over the humps in the road. You have to move over day by day. And the way to do that is to strive for the future instead of lagging away in the past. Okay. Now, this was my experience today. I've run through. This was my experience of June 2023, so over a year ago. It's about nearly a year and a half ago now. God, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, nearly a year and a half ago. That's right. Nearly a year and a half. That's bloody crazy. Anyway, this is my experience. Please tell us your experiences in the comment section below. And next time I'll be joined by a very, 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 very great expert in the ways of film and industries of games. I'll be looking at the gaming and film industry in many different angles and different ways as we discuss the film industry, cinemas and box office inside out. So thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys in the next one.